Buckle up, Outriders. This update is going to be a large one. Enjoy. When I say this is going to be a large update, I'm not joking. This is 2 whole pages worth of changes. We've got to switch across to another page shortly, so as you can see, we can scroll down, but we've got 2 of these pages. So let's go through and have a look at what we've got. So to start, they mentioned, as I said, this is too long to be contained in a single page, so it's going to be across the 2. All changes made in today's patch have been carefully considered, and many of them are the results of direct feedback and discussions with and within the community. For additional context around what we have to address, a few weeks afterwards they had launched, we had and had been able to gather enough data. They drew up a full view of which PAX nodes were being used, by what percentage of the player population. The task highlighted that some small number of nodes were seeing uses of 40 to 60% or more. On the other hand, some nodes were seeing 1% or similar range. The reasons this are twofold. Many of the highly used nodes were in a state where to not use them would be to deny oneself a lot of damage output. There were must-haves in the eyes of players, and these are the kind of nodes that allowed players to kill bosses within seconds, to become immortal, or to even entirely ignore cooldown mechanics, and in a few cases these unintended performances were the result of bugs within the node mechanics. On the other hand, the lesser picked nodes were not considered valuable enough when compared to the others. We primarily saw this behaviour on the Devastator, Pyromancer and Technomancer trees. The Trickster PAX tree was seen to be very balanced overall, with most nodes seeing on average a 25% pick rate, which indicates that players are much more able to play according to their style without being forced into a must-have kind of node. As ever has been their goal, they want players to have as much choice and as many viable build options as possible. When new players join Outriders, we do not want there to be a single answer to questions regarding what build should I play. While today's balancing contains a large number of changes that will make many things more powerful and viable, none of these changes would matter if we left the overperformers entirely unchecked. However, please bear in mind that even if a handful of nodes and mods have seen their power curtailed, we have generally tried to compensate that for power loss in other areas of the game. So I've already read through these, so I can say straight away, but we'll go through them obviously. There are some big nerfs in here, but there are also some buffs in place as well with the other mods or other trees that you'll see shortly, which will give you maybe not quite the same amount of damage, but it's definitely going to compensate for the losses as well. So if we scroll down and have a look at the balance changes, so first off, the Apocalypse tier leveling system. So starting from Apocalypse tier 20, the requirement to level up each Apocalypse tier has been reduced by 10%. So that's going to speed up each level a little bit. The grind's still going to be there somewhat, but it's definitely a help. So whether that'll be reduced even more soon, if it's still not quite right, that's something to look out for. Resource and anomaly extract. The amount of extract gained has been improved, and the amount gained in Terragratar's troves has been increased by 500%. So you should be seeing the anomaly extract come in nice and quick after this update. A full run through of Terragratar, including the troves, should now net around about double the amount prior to this patch. Boss rushing to the final arbiter will net slightly more than before, but it won't be the most efficient route if you're trying to farm anomaly extract. And then crafting and upgrading, so starting at item level 50, so anything below 50 hasn't been touched. The anomaly extract costs required to upgrade gear has been reduced by 5%. So between the 2 above changes, increased gains and reduced cost, players should be able to support upgrading 2 full sets of gear per Apocalypse tier level. This should enable a greater amount of experimentations and limit the need to hoard resources in order to be able to upgrade the currently equipped set. Apocalypse gear drop rates. Starting at Apocalypse tier 11, the increased chance for Apocalypse variant gear has been increased for each Apocalypse tier. We don't have the numbers on that at the moment, but it has been increased for each one. Expeditions. Expedition rewards have been increased in order to make expeditions feel more viable, alongside Terra Gratar. The loot gained per X time investment should now feel quite similar between expeditions and Terra Gratar, so that will mean that you don't have to constantly do the runs of Terra Gratar to get the the most out of gaining Apocalypse tiers. Now you can do the expeditions as well. So if you prefer the expeditions, they should give a very similar amount of XP towards your Apocalypse as well. Players should now receive a great amount of epic and legendary items and comparatively fewer rare items in expeditions. It's great to see that the blue items are going to be less, and obviously the ones that you're looking for are the epics and legendaries plus the Apocalypse variant, so we should see more of those. And anomaly extract farming should now also feel much more viable to do in expeditions as well. Now on to the balance changes. So first of all, the Devastator. Now I'm not going to admit that I'm not going to say that I know all of what these would do. I haven't actually played Devastator in World Slayer as of yet, but we can go through, and you can, if you're a Devastator main, you will probably understand these more than myself. But so they've added to Earthen Shell a 0.5 second cooldown. Note that due to a display rounding quirk in the engine, this cooldown will be displayed as being 1 second. It is, however, 0.5 seconds. Greatly increase the shield generation values. So their explanation is Earthen Shell has been identified as being slightly too strong, so we're applying a brief cooldown to the shield generation that was being abused through excessive animation cancelling. This will give some enemies a little more opportunity to be able to damage Devastators who are otherwise immortal. We have compensated for the implementation of the cooldown with an increased shield generation per skill used. The Earthen Shell will still provide great value, but without the potential for abuse, which I think is great to see. They are fixing a bug there. Multi-strike, the stored damage is now capped at 700% of anomaly power. Multi-strike's untamed potency has been a topic of discussion since the launch of World Slayer. In an attempt to not completely gut its numbers, we have applied a cap to add a movable through anomaly power ceiling to the node. In terms of engagement, stored damage is now capped at 700% of anomaly power. Much like Multi-Strike, suffer from a bug that allows players to store an unlimited amount of damage and release it as one-hit kill against any enemy in the game, including bosses. Our approach has been the same as with Multi-Strike, whereby we have applied a cap to the total amount of damage these nodes can store. Finishing Touch, increase the ammo to weapon damage coefficient provided by this node as part of our drive to make Firepower Devastators more viable. Great to see. We are increasing the conversion of missing ammo to weapon damage by upping the value to more than its previous 1-to-1 relation. So it'd be interesting to see what they actually have up that to. Impact Point, increased damage scaling from 30 to 50% of anomaly power. This buff forms part of an overall power shift. This patch is introducing for Devastators. The overall aim is to move the Devastator meta away from its current form and instead open up multiple new viable options for play. Obliteration, increased base anomaly power and resistance piercing from 6% to 10%. Obliteration is being buffed to make it a more competitive choice when considered against Puncture. This buff forms part of the overall power shift this patch is introducing for Devastators. The overall aim is to move Devastator meta away from its current form and instead open up multiple new viable options for play. Upheaval, increase the percentage of storage damage from 10% to 15%, and fixed a couple of bugs that caused Devastator Upheaval Pax node to act in unexpected and inconsistent ways, such as acting differently when triggered by the Impale skill. So as we've applied the cap to Multi-Strike, and a bug fix will now make Upheaval only store the activating player's own damage, as was always intended. We are increasing the amount of stored damage as part of the overall Devastator power shift. Elitism, fixed the bug that prevented the Devastator Pax node Elitism from correctly working on bosses and reduced the cooldown from 5 to 1 seconds. The bug fix supported the node's core purpose, providing power when fighting elite and boss enemies. However, during our analysis of Elitism's usage and behaviour, we identified that its previous uptime was clocked at around 50% at best. Reducing its cooldown should allow players to maintain Elitism almost perpetually when fighting elites and bosses. Overwhelming Force increased armor to damage conversion from 40% to 60%. Overwhelming Force's conversion is being bugged in order to incite more players into trying playstyles it supports, while also providing a I assume that meant buffed rather than bugged, providing a competitive synergy between this PAX node and changes we have made to some Devastator legendary sets. Paladin/Champion remove protection keyword requirement and change both nodes to activate on any skill. So after long discussions, we came to the conclusion that in order to truly unlock Devastator build variety, we had to remove the hindering factor of protection keyword on base of both of these multiplayer nodes. The change is part of our overall power shift to make Devastator's sets and playstyles more viable. Mighty Tank increased the percentage cap from 40 to 50% for both Anomaly Power and Firepower, raising the ceiling for Warden Devastators so they can reap more benefits from fully committing to armor stacking. Despair reduced percentage of its anomaly damage multiplier from 100% to 30%. Despair empowered Gravity Leap has dominated Devastator meta as an Omni tool since Worldslayer launched. It has provided, I should say, both uncontested survivability and damage debuffs, whilst also being a powerful gap closer. While the survivability is a unique characteristic of Gravity Leap, with Worldslayer we introduced a systemic solution to debuff mods. At the time, we equalised them across board to 30%, but Despair was a single outlier. This led to the Anomaly Power Devastator meta becoming extremely static, with the most dominant build continuing to be Leapquake, as it was already during the base game's lifecycle. This was a result of being able to access both the Paladin node and Despair at the same time, and acquire effects that other build permutations could not achieve. Today's change removes the must-have nature of Gravity Leap, allowing it to be traded with other skills that can provide a comparable debuff, coupled with Unshackled Paladin should greatly expand the Devastator build variety. Bullet Acceleration increased base damage from 33 to 60 with Paladin and Champion Unshackled from the protection keyword. We are keen to add offensive value to Reflect Bullet so that it is not a lost and abandoned skill. This should give players incentive to keep the skill for its full duration. The Strongest First increased damage to the enemy with the highest HP from 50 to 75%. With Paladin and Champion Unshackled from the protection keyword, we are keen to add offensive value to Reflect Bullet so that it's not lost and abandoned skill. This should give players again incentive to keep it for the full duration. Bannerlord's legendary set added extra functionality that provides a 35% anomaly power bonus. Fundamental changes were made to any gear pieces may not be applied to existing items due to the way the game spawns and stores loot. Any newly dropped gear pieces should include the stated changes if the existing items remain unaffected. So Seismic Commander set has long been dominant Devastator pick due to its multipliers, required skill sets and its effective values concerning cooldown reduction when compared against damage multipliers. Given the Bannerlord set, extra anomaly power should help make it more competitive against the Seismic Commander set. Martial Legendary set increased both percentages of shared physical and anomaly damage from 30% to 50%. And then, as mentioned in the Bannerlord explanation, the Seismic Commander set is too much of a powerful all-rounder, which prevents other sets from being considered viable. The philosophy believes that sets that fill a certain niche, such as martial sets, should excel in their tailored environments and should visibly outperform jack-of-all-trades sets such as Seismic Commander. Concussion Legendary set, primary attribute, switch to bonus firepower. Secondary attribute, switch to contain close range damage and status power. Fundamental changes, blah blah blah. So you only get them on new drops. Concussion set suffered from a severe case of identity crisis. The set was initially designed as an anomaly power bruiser, but progression layers with certain PAX nodes were not cooperating with this set's premise. We have decided to shift the set to support firepower builds in the same way Deathproof sets might. For both of these sets, damage is generated primarily from armor stacking to set bonus effect. This change for the concussion set should also unlock better synergy with the Pax nodes through overwhelming force path. And then finally for the Devastator, Statue's leg slot. Statue's leg slot. Item now provides bonus firepower instead of max health. With Worldslayer rolled out, change the attributes for legendary sets to make them more coherent and appealing to players. This changes the finishing touch of those efforts. So that's the Devastators. Let us know, obviously, in the comments what you think of those changes. For me, they don't affect me. I've not played Devastator yet on Worldslayer. So are they good? Are they bad? You let us know. Now, a quick sponsored message. If you don't have enough time, nerves, or any good teammates, but you still want to have all of the cool weapons, armor, and mods, we suggest you visit this website, www.deving.net. They boost in Destiny 2, The Division 2, and many others. Leveling, expeditions, custom streamer builds, and guns with high rolls, and so on. You can choose what you need. The boost works with account sharing and self-play, so they do everything for you without cheats or bug abuse. We have tested this service in the past ourselves, and we can recommend you these guys. They can be trusted. This site has been working for many years, and it's got a lot of client reviews and payment methods. You can check this yourself, and with the code Babylon, you'll have a 15% discount on all their services. If you didn't get it or you have any questions, then feel free to contact an operator. Moving on now to the Technomancer. So Lethal Devices added a 0.2 second cooldown to this node's secondary effect. Lethal Devices' secondary effect was fairly overwhelming when used with a few builds that capitalized on an excessive amount of damage events occurring within a second. This change should control the excessive amount of events slightly without killing the node's damage effect. Twin Reaper increased echo damage from 25% to 35%. Fixed a bug that prevented the Technomancer's Twin Reaper Pax node from functioning properly after loading into a level. In order to stimulate the sniper archetype presence, we are increasing the echo damage provided by Twin Reaper in order to support the fantasy of precise sniper shots being a deadly threat. Kinetic Converter reduced the cooldown from 5 to 1 second. The healing path for Technomancers has long been underrepresented, so we are increasing this Pax node's frequency to ensure the benefit for overhealing occurs more often and can more effectively be utilized in combat. Hastened Influence increased the cooldown reduction from 0.5 to 1 second. We feel the node didn't really hasten the Technomancer's influence over enemies and are therefore giving it a boost. Winter is coming. Burrowing Charge reduced cooldown from 5 to 3 seconds. Burrowing Charge is performing well in terms of numbers, so we're targeting the occurrence rate to make it more fluent during hectic multi-enemy encounters. Blightfire fixed a bug that caused Technomancer's Flame Leper's Blightfire set bonus to consume and trigger off of Toxic that had been applied by other players, which in turn denied those players their application of Toxic. Fixed a bug that prevented Toxic multiplayer mods from correctly working when applied to Blightfire. Explanation: shit was broken. We fixed it. I like that one. Makes sense. Downpour Legendary set. Increased clusters scaling from 100% to 115% of anomaly power. We are increasing the cluster scaling as compensation for some still visible issues with targeting, travel time, and detonation time of Scrapnel. Balancing changes for the Pyromancer now. So that's all of the Technomancer changes. So we're on to Pyromancer. Carbon footprint increased cooldown reduction from 0.5 to 1 second. The immobilized path in the Pax tree is still underrepresented, and we are increasing the cooldown reduction from weaving both immobilized skills to stimulate builds relying on constant Ash application. Carbonization increased damage multiplier from 20% to 25%. The immobilized path in the Pax tree, blah 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 blah. Same thing there. Convection. Reduce the cooldown reduction from 4 to 2 seconds. Convection launched in an undesired state with improper values. As a result of this, it has completely overshadowed the Arsonist path. Due to the positive feedback loop it generates, we are shifting its nature slightly to chip away cooldowns instead of fully resetting them. Low cooldowns and skills on tap remain one of Outriders Worldslayer's key tenets, but launch day Convection went too far down this path. Arsonist, reduced cooldown from 5 to 4 seconds. Blah, 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 blah. In order to make Arsonist a more appealing choice, trimming Convection, increasing frequency of Arsonist through reduced cooldowns, increasing the percentage chance to proc, would be counterproductive to the node's nature and its maximum gain, which is refreshing as many skills as possible. Solar Flare, increased critical damage per stack from 10 to 15%. Similar to Immobilized Path struggles, the critical path was overshadowed by Bullet Frenzy. We're increasing the crit damage multiplier to make it a more appealing and competitive choice. Critical Mass, increased duration from 2 to 5 seconds. Critical Mass was designed to be baked in Embalmer's range and was meant to offer a competitive choice to Bullet Frenzy, but this was not achieved at launch. We're providing more leeway to this node through its increased duration so that players can enjoy guaranteed crit shots for longer periods of time, while offsetting troubles with scoring a critical shot on beast enemies or very mobile humanoids. Master Exploder, reduced conversion rate from 100 to 50%. Master Exploder has been overperforming when combined with the amount of resistance piercing players are gathering from multiple sources. Master Exploder completely outshined Trigger Sequence, and we are committing to a power shift inside the branch, relaying power from Master Exploder into Trigger Sequence to make the Apex node an appealing choice. Backdraft, reduced anomaly power ramp per stack from 30 to 25%. Trigger Sequence has been overshadowed by Backdraft, trimming a bit of power in Backdraft and compensating Trigger Sequence in order to make it a more desired node. Trigger Sequence increased damage ramp per stack from 25 to 35. As stated in the Master Exploder notes, Trigger Sequence has been overshadowed, blah, 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 blah. Whilst we do not want to cut our players' freedom of selection which packs nodes they choose, we do still strive to make Apex nodes provide the highest benefits so that using them feels worthwhile. Burnt Offerings increased damage ramp per tick from 10% to 20%. Burnt Offerings is ramping too slowly in encounter pacing that emerged post-launch, so we're expediting it to make the node reach considerable amounts of damage from Burnt Offerings faster and more reliably. Wildfire/Conduction, fixed above that prevented Wildfire and Conduction Pyromancer skill tree nodes from being effective if players were pushing the limits of their cooldown reduction. The nodes were not working as intended and was being diminished by the global cooldown reduction cap, which is achieved rather easily in Worldslayer. Mark of the Anomaly increased the damage against marked enemies by 10% to 12%. This is part of an overall change in which we're providing some extra power across all firepower builds in the base game's class trees. Susceptibility, reduced resistance reduction from 40 to 30%. In Worldslayer, we introduced a systemic solution to resistance reduction mods, but susceptibility evaded that adjustment. We are amending that in order to even it out with mods such as Asunder. Reforged Legendary Set increased thermal bomb damage from 100% to 200% and increased Feeder Flames damage from 100 to 200%. The niche that Reforged was filling was overtaken with the introduction of the Heat Seeker set. We are therefore looking to differentiate them by making Reforged play around big thermal bombs in comparison to the many thermal bombs that Heat Seeker provides. Additionally, this change is another step in making Feed the Flames a competitive choice for anomaly power builds who want to play around single target / cleave profile. Torture Legendary Set increased the damage shared from 30 to 50%, similar to the Martial set. We want to make niche sets excel in their designated environment without letting them be outperformed by Jack of all trade sets. And now, my favourite class, as you probably know, the Trickster set. So with this one, Quantum Entanglement increasing the shared damage from 20% to 30%, so it's going to be competing with Pain Transfer mods, and they found that a lot of people still used Time Rift and Pain Transfer, so they're looking to sort of bridge the gap with this now to get it closer, so you don't necessarily have to use Time Rift. Special tactics increase duration from 3 to 5 seconds, adding a bit of breathing room for players running special tactics when searching for new elites on the battlefield, so they can keep stacking the ramp. Cheap shots increase debuff duration from 5 to 10 seconds and increased armor and resistance shreds from 30 to 40. Cheap shot is greatly underrepresented, so we are adding duration and increasing shred capacity to allow players a bigger scope of debuffing enemies across the battlefield, whilst also allowing the debuff to last longer without players having to get up close and personal every few seconds. Spectral Spike cooldown has been reduced from 1 to 0.5 seconds, so similar to the Pyromancer's Burnt Offerings change, shortening time for the Spectral Spike's ramp to reach its max potency. This should make the build-up more fluent in the emergent Worldslayer combat pacing. So you'll see the bigger damage numbers a lot quicker with that now. So that is actually something that I'm actually looking forward to using as well. Sort of swapping from the bottom tree back to the top tree and seeing what sort of damage numbers we can do with that. Temporal Blade base cooldown reduced from 19.8 to 16.8. Basically, they've just seen that it's not used as much. It's quite a slow cooldown as of yet, at the moment, sorry. So they're trying to make the change, the slight push to make its combat loop more fluent through faster access to Temporal Blade. Wind Slash increased base damage from 6.5 to 13, so that's nearly doubling that. Or sorry, that is doubling that damage. So that is great to see that that's going to have added damage to it. So Cyclone Slice is having a hard time fitting into Worldslayer, so we're giving it a boost to make it a more viable choice. So I definitely will be testing that out at some point to see what we can do with it. Slow Trap cooldown reduced from 10 to 8 seconds, making the Slow Trap more portable for the dynamic playstyles that Trickster represents, just so you can drop it more often. And Terminal Velocity Legendary sets the weapon damage bonus increased from 60 to 80%, so that's a 20% gain. Firepower Tricksters are underperforming slightly in comparison to Anomaly, so adding extra power into the set bonus to even it out with the Shield Beast set. So that is the class trees all done. So now we're on to the balances for all classes. So we are nearly there on this page, and then we have page number 2 to come as well. So Maxwell Demon Legendary set, fixed an issue with the set bonus only accounting for bonus firepower instead of total firepower. So they've just a fix on that, which was never the outcome to only do bonus, it was to do total. Trigger Twitch set is having a big buff. Increase the firepower coefficient from 40% to, and yes, you are going to hear this right, 280%. Wow. That is a big increase. Fixed the bug that prevented the Trigger Twitch set from prioritizing targets properly. Trigger Twitch was launched with incorrect values, making the set severely underperform. This is an adjustment to bring it to the intended power level. Mage Rage, which this might make some players rage as well, but they fixed the bug that was causing unforeseen issues with the amount of stacks and the anomaly power calculation. They fixed the bug that was preventing stacks from dropping away as intended when players swap weapons, which I'm a little bit upset at that, but I can see why. So Mage's Rage provided over twice of what it's supposed to give in terms of anomaly power. This change sets the mod into the right place power-wise. While this change may feel significant for any players who are exclusively relying on Mage's Rage, overall balancing has ensured that not all the excess power has been lost. Rather, it has been flowed into other mods and combinations in order to provide a greater spread of viable builds. Self-medication, I'm sad on this one as well. Fix the bug that caused self-medication to fully restore players' health every time it triggered. Simple bug fix, as the model is clearly acting different to what its description said. Now, I think I did mention that in the video that we did on it, to be fair. That I think it could have been a bug. Turns out it was. It was a fun bug because you couldn't die, but unfortunately that has now gone. No resistance against the fortified, reduced conversion rate from 100 to 65%. So it was launched with unintentionally high value. However, after seeing how dominant it has been since becoming builds, we are only trimming some of its power instead of fully reverting it. The change should diminish the ease of exceeding 100% resistance. Piercing, which is the main cause of unintended, unfixable damage increases. Oof. Nearly there. Dark Sacrifice. Reduce the health drain from 50 to 25% and increase the damage boost from 25 to 35. Dark Sacrifice was hit too hard at the launch of World's Lair, so we're restoring some of its power, whilst also reducing the amount of drain. So I think a lot of people are going to probably use Dark Sacrifice a lot more now. Definitely with losing only 25% health and getting a 35% bonus. Killing Spree increased damage boost per stack from 10 to 13%, increased duration from 8 to 15 seconds. Killing Spree was hit too hard at the launch, so restoring some of its power that was lost. Fortress increased from 20 to 25% with the damage, restoring some of the offensive power it previously lost, so the mod can keep up with the amplifier mods that are getting buffed with this patch. First things first, reduced armor piercing value from 50 to 30%. Previously increased it, but this led to overbearing gameplay patterns of players intentionally not shooting guns at all. We tackled this to an extent of when reworking Fortress last November. With that in mind, we have reduced the value of first things first to encourage more active gunplay, as we want players to go into combat think about what they're doing rather than relying on stat sticks and skill spam. Tactical Retreat increased base damage from 54 to 62, increasing damage with this mod to make it more competitive with golden standard mods like Thunder's Legacy. As Tactical Retreat requires additional planning and effort to use the mod effectively, it should feel rewarding to rely on. Shock and Awe increased the range from 5 to 10 and fixed the bug that caused it to trigger more often than intended. Increased range to make mod compete better with similar mods from the same category which do not require being struck by enemies. Anomaly power class nodes have been increased from 10 to 15%, which is as part of the compensation for power vacuum created by fixing Mage's Rage. We are amplifying the class nodes to return part of the power lost. Increased weapon damage value from 8 to 15%. This change is intended to bring firepower builds across all classes in line with anomaly power builds. So that's it for page 1. So I think we'll move on to page 2 now. This has become a very long video, but there is a lot to cover. So let's take a look at the next page.